Thanks to Sony and Funimation, the Western anime industry has hit a new low in censorship. Welcome back to OtakuDaiKun. Dai here. The latest topic among the online anime community, certainly as far as my AniTuber compatriots are concerned, is the latest screw-up regarding Funimation's release of Ishizoku Reviewers. Yes, after going so far as to simulcast and even dub 3 full episodes of this anime, Funimation suddenly decided to drop the show from its lineup, giving one of the most pathetic PR statements imaginable to explain themselves. As a result, Funimation is, as far as I'm aware, the first localization company to ever flat-out reject a show that it's already licensed. Without diving too deep into the anime itself, Ishizoku Reviewers takes place in a fantasy world where prostitution and brothels are not only legal, but also widely accepted and economical. Our main characters are a human, elf, angel, and varied assortment of fantasy races who frequent these brothels and write reviews on their experiences. It's equal parts funny and risque. And from the very moment it was announced, online fans knew that this show would ruffle feathers. In Funimation's own unintelligible words, they dropped the anime because it fails to meet Funimation's standards, which is as vague as it gets. Clearly, it seems something about the anime's raunchiness is too much for Funimation or Sony executives to handle. After all, while Ishizoku Reviewers is a seasonal anime release, it's definitely an Ero anime that is just barely outside the bounds of being an H, which very few Western studios will even touch. Heck, it's got such a clean production that even without showing all the naughty bits, it still manages to put most modern H to shame in terms of animation. That said, this isn't the first Ero anime to be localized, particularly with Funimation. High School DxD comes to mind, which is filled with exposure sure to upset any snowflakes. Hence why Sony is probably to blame, as the sudden shift in, dare I say, moral values very much mimics how Sony handles itself as a gaming platform. It's tragic, but Western anime fans have experienced a complex history of censorship when it comes to anime and Japanese games. At the bottom, we've got shows marketed at children, the 4Kids era censorship that sternly erases all manner of sex, violence, religion, alcohol, smoking, or anything that might make parents angry. Going up from that, we've got aggressive localization, which tries so hard to wipe clean any semblance of Japanese culture from a work, whether it be the sentiments, music, language, or general appeal of the show in hopes of appeasing more casual Western sensibilities. Next, you've got complete butchering of source material, with companies using assets from an anime to rebrand it as something completely different. More recently, we've been seeing the writers and translators going so far as to inject their own views and politics into the characters without provocation, along with other memes or pop culture references nobody asked for. Ever since control of Sony went to the United States, it's only gotten worse. In just the last few years, we've seen some of the peak worst cases of censorship, the kind that hits anime at its source. Thanks to Sony, for the first time, Japanese creators have had to cater to sensitive Western values, even when making their own domestic works. Thanks to Nintendo and Atlus, we've got heavily censored Western versions of games being forced back onto the Japanese market as the definitive experience. And now, we've got the very first case of a Western company buying the license to a show and declaring not to deliver on their acquisition. Rather than trying to figure out exactly what is going on at Sony and Funimation, I want to speak of the implications of them dropping Ishizoku Reviewers. You see, when Japanese studios show interest in selling their anime overseas, they auction off the licenses to these shows to interested parties. This means that Netflix, Funimation, Amazon, Crunchyroll, Sentai Filmworks, and others compete to purchase the rights to shows they think will be a big hit. With only some minor exceptions. When one studio acquires the rights to an anime, the others aren't able to touch it. One exception being how Funimation and Crunchyroll often share their library under various conditions. Unfortunately, there are pros and cons no matter which company wins. If it's Aniplex, that means owning the anime on Blu-ray is going to cost an arm and a leg, but otherwise have a faithful localization with luxurious packaging. If it's Funimation, there's a chance the anime may be dubbed in-house and be torn to shreds by aggressive script changes. If it's Netflix, expect a solid localization that may never come out on home video. Like seriously, I'll be hella surprised if Carol and Tuesday gets a Blu-ray release. The North American licensing war has had its casualties. Recreators, for instance, was acquired by Amazon Prime Video, and as such, hasn't had a home video release for years. While Cabaneri of the Iron Fortress managed to escape that fate and get licensed by Funimation for Blu-ray release with an English dub produced in California, where the good voice acting comes from, and yet now its sequel movie is licensed by Netflix, so who knows what'll happen there. Others, like Violet Evergarden, may never have a Region 1 Blu-ray, whereas it's already been released outside of the US. In this way, such issues are unique to each region as well. Australia has Madman Entertainment and the streaming platform Anime Lab that occasionally benefit from being able to acquire these rights without competing with US and Canadian companies. Many regions, of course, are left without any local distribution, which is arguably the worst fate. That's effectively the kind of limbo Funimation is putting Ishizoku reviewers into. What's going to happen to this show? The best case scenario would be for Crunchyroll to inherit the streaming rights, and for Funimation to finish their dub exclusively as a home video release. They should have known what they were getting into before buying the license, and now that they have, they should follow up on their promise. If the issue is having the show mixed in with their other streaming content, that they're trying to curate a more family-friendly platform, then they can just release the show separately. Next best would be to hand those rights off to someone who will actually give the anime the love it deserves, perhaps Sentai. Both studios are in Texas. It might be possible for Sentai to just finish the dub using all the same voice actors already invested in the project. Worst case scenario would be that the show never gets released in the US at all. Just imagine that. You, a fan of the show, being denied the chance to legally own it in your own region because some woke industry snowflake decided to pull the plug. Shouldn't this stuff be voted on with our wallets? Doesn't it suck that the very companies that should be defending the existence of such anime are instead shaming us for it? I remember when ADV Films, the predecessor to Sentai, totally understood the appeal of their own shows. Some of their more fan service-heavy anime would have a special feature called the Jiggle Counter, which tallied all the chest bounces on a specific DVD. Not saying anyone should go and bring that feature back, but it did show that ADV was willing to support their series, and the fans who supported them. They were giving these anime a platform and acknowledging the fanbase without judging them. So what does that say when Funimation drops one of their own anime? That the fans of this series, their own customers, aren't as important as the public image they want to put forward. Ironically, given that Ishizoku Reviewers is arguably the most entertaining show of this season, Funimation's removal of it demonstrates just how out of touch they are from their own community and the culture they should be representing. Not to mention, this is the same company that released a dub for Shimoneta, an anime depicting a group of rebels in a dystopian future where all lewd things are banned and criminalized. Effectively, Funimation's playing the bad guys in a show that they licensed. As many have said, I'm sure the problem lies with Sony. While it's not entirely fair to blame everything on one person, certainly an icon of Sony's downfall has been Jim Ryan, who's been smiling like a jubilant gremlin, all the while bludgeoning the integrity of anime to death. I mean, really, do you want a guy like this telling you what you should or shouldn't be playing or watching? The quickest way to solve this would be to reverse Sony's new family-friendly policy and put control of the company back in Japan where it belongs. That said, this whole controversy finally got me to go and watch Ishizoku Reviewers, and I'm glad to say that it's way better than I expected. I recommend you all give it a shot using the only method available, piracy. No joke, while I'm generally adamantly against piracy, this is one of those rare circumstances where we have no other choice. Crunchyroll used to have most, if not all, the anime streaming in a given season, and studios like Sentai and Funimation would simply handle home video releases. But now that every platform around is fighting over licenses without delivering us fans the full domestic experience, dub or sub, I feel these companies are to an extent hurting anime more than helping it. Seriously, even if Funimation does the right thing in this situation, their blunder has already set back and ruined the seasonal experience for everyone outside the fansub circle. I supported Crunchyroll because it was easy to just plop down on my couch and catch up with the latest episodes with no effort whatsoever. And in many ways it still is, but that convenience is fleeting quickly. I feel I'm helping the creators more by buying merch at this point. We're lucky to have fansubs for anime, and it's a shame the same can't be done for gaming. Anyway, that's how I feel. These companies have one job, to bring us anime, and they're failing miserably at doing so. Do you agree? What do you think would be the best solution for this mess? Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this channel, help me beat the algorithm by liking, commenting, and sharing the video, subscribing to OtakuDaiKun, and most of all, smashing that notification bell as if it were your waifu. That way you'll never miss out on all of my anime content, lore videos, live streams, and Holy Waifu Wars polls. My vids are struggling to get featured, so that bell is absolutely critical. If you want to support me directly, check out my Patreon, or consider donating via Super Chat. And as always, celebrate your fandom.